Good afternoon. We'll call the hearing to order. And I appreciate everybody coming today to this hearing. I think it's going to be a very informative hearing. There's over 22 million veterans right now living in the United States, and by 2040, those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan are going to make up 50% of the entire veterans population. The unemployment rate for these younger veterans is higher than that of their civilian counterparts, and is one of the many challenges that they face transitioning into civilian life. Despite the obstacles associated with this readjustment from the military service, veterans possess a unique set of skills learned in the military, such as the ability to lead, communicate effectively, and execute tasks efficiently and with precision. This may be why veterans tend to be more entrepreneurial than the rest of the population. In fact, each year since 1979, the self-employment rate for veterans has remained higher than that of the rest of the population overall. Given the roadblocks faced by veterans, combined with their propensity for small business ownership, numerous efforts have been created in the private sector designed to assist veteran entrepreneurs in achieving their goals. In creating programs that provide entrepreneurial training, mentorship, financial assistance, and networking opportunities, private organizations have stepped up to the plate for our nation's returning heroes. One such effort is started back in my district in North Missouri. Jim Allen, a community leader in Platte County, is forming an organization called Honor Capital, backed by a group of investors committed to helping veterans obtain quality employment. Honor Capital is also planning to assist veterans in opening their own Save-A-Lot grocery stores. One of the group's partners, Army Captain Mark Esposito, who's in the audience today, a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy and an Army helicopter pilot. Captain Esposito flew over 400 medevac missions in Afghanistan, and he's here with us today. Today we're going to learn about some of the other efforts that are assisting our nation's heroes in transitioning to the world of entrepreneurship. And we're fortunate to have with us a group of veteran entrepreneurs and small business owners, and we look forward to hearing all of the stories. And I want to thank you for your service to your country and for being here. And I now recognize Ranking Member Velasquez for opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By developing new products, advancing research, and creating new markets, entrepreneurs are an important force in our economy. Over the years, we have repeatedly seen the important role veterans play in this process. Due to the leadership, training, perseverance, knowledge of the government procurement process, and other skills acquired in the military, veterans are often uniquely qualified to launch and manage their own businesses. In fact, in today's private sector workforce, veterans are 45% more likely to be self-employed compared to workers without active duty military experience. Currently, there are about 2.5 million veterans-owned businesses, about 1 in 10 that generate over $1 trillion in receipts. Clearly, for many men and women leaving the service, entrepreneurship provides a promising opportunity to continue serving their country and creating jobs in their local communities, all while supporting their families. Despite the rich tradition of veterans owning small businesses, the veteran unemployment rate sits around 9%. For that reason, both public and private initiatives have been established to assist transitioning service members. Unfortunately, those initiatives often fail to develop veterans' entrepreneurial goals. Besides the Small Business Administration's veteran-focused program, like the Veterans Business Outreach Centers and the Boots to Business program, the private sector has their own efforts to assist veterans. Many of these projects are multidimensional, offering everything from a basic course on running a business to helping prospective entrepreneurs secure startup capital. Today, we will hear from several veterans entrepreneurs about their first-hand experiences with some of these programs. It is my hope that they can highlight for us what they found beneficial, where improvements can be made, and identify gaps in how these services reach veterans. Assisting entrepreneurs will require integrated, comprehensive solutions that leverage a combination of government, nonprofit, and private efforts. Despite the progress we have made, hundreds of thousands of veterans and their families continue to struggle, demonstrating how much more needs to be done. It is incumbent on all of us to ensure that resources reach the veterans and service members these programs are meant to help. In that regard, as we examine private sector initiatives, we must consider ways they can complement government programs to maximize effectiveness. I thank all the witnesses for being here today. Your testimony will help inform the committee as we move toward that goal. On that note, I thank the chairman for the time, and I yield back.
All right. Our first witness today is Wade Franklin, who's the owner of the UPS store in Arlington, Virginia. After graduating from the U.S. Naval Academy in 2005, Mr. Franklin served 7 years in the U.S. Navy, which included multiple wartime deployments in Afghanistan, Japan, and the Persian Gulf, where he steered ships, led teams of sailors, and supervised a wide range of technical experts. Mr. Franklin today is testifying on behalf of the International Franchise Association. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Velasquez, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify today on ways that the private sector can assist veterans in pursuing business ownership and other opportunities. My name is Wade Franklin. I'm the owner of the UPS store franchise in Arlington, Virginia, and a veteran of the United States Navy. I appear before you today on behalf of the International Franchise Association. Franchising is a large community of diverse businesses that all grow and operate using franchise business model. In this model, entrepreneurs open their own establishments and purchase the rights to operate their business using the trademarks, products, and business strategies of a proven franchise system. Franchises are very common in the restaurant and hospitality space, but franchising is also popular in business services, personal services, retail, and automotive. I left the Navy in February of 2012 and was looking for employment opportunities during the previous fall. The prevalent prospects for corporate management jobs that many junior officers are drawn to, but I did not necessarily want to go down that path. While searching for opportunities for veterans, I came across VetFran, the International Franchise Association's Veterans Transition Program, and saw the financial incentives that hundreds of franchise systems offer to veterans who open franchise businesses. One of the opportunities that most appealed to me was the UPS store, who at the time was offering to waive their $30,000 franchise fee for the first 10 veterans approved as franchise owners in 2012. I was approved to become a UPS store franchise owner in February 2012, and I was one of the 10 veterans that had their initial franchise fee waived. There are obvious challenges to jumping straight into running a business without prior business experience, which few veterans have. I went to the Naval Academy out of high school and spent the next 7 years in the Navy. While I learned many valuable skills in the Navy, the military is not the best forum to prepare veterans to own a business. The military does a terrific job of supporting us while serving, but the enormous risk of opening a business in civilian life while leaving behind many of the resources previously provided by the military can be daunting. To that end, private sector programs such as VetFran can be extremely beneficial in filling the support gap that often exists for veterans. For me, the most important part of the decision was assessing the financial resources available to me and allocating those resources as best I could. That was and remains the most difficult obstacle for me to overcome in becoming a business owner. Franchise models have complex yet effective operations guidelines, and the franchise owners that can best execute the system are those who realize the most success. Our nation's servicemen and women have many of the qualities that make successful franchise business owners. Attention to detail, situational awareness, and communication skills are benefits learned in the armed forces. Above all else, veterans possess the leadership skills necessary to run a successful small business and to persevere through the tough times that keep that business running. Recognizing that franchising is a great fit for entrepreneurial veterans, the International Franchise Association launched VetFran in 1991 to encourage franchise companies to recruit veterans as franchise owners. As part of VetFran, franchisors offer special incentives to qualified veterans who enter into franchise agreements, ranging from thousands of dollars in initial inventory to special financing on equipment. In a report on Veterans Day in 2013, a survey revealed that the franchise industry has nearly doubled its hiring target since 2011, with over 151,000 veterans having started careers in franchising. However, we are most proud of the fact that over 5,000 veterans have been recruited as franchise owners across hundreds of franchise systems. Unsurprisingly, the survey went further to indicate that veteran-owned franchises were the more successful than other franchises, far outpacing non-veteran-owned units in both sales and numbers of jobs created. I'm proud to say that the UPS store participates in the VetFran initiative and note that the network has more than 150 veteran owners that have taken advantage of this program, and over 280 stores are operated by those veterans. I like to think that I'm smart and resourceful enough to have navigated my way through opening a business without the help of VetFran, but there's no doubt that the program was a significant catalyst in starting my business. Legislation in the House of Representatives, the Veterans Entrepreneurs Act of 2013, will provide a tax credit to qualified veteran franchise owners with up to 25% of the initial franchise fee, capped at $400,000. In addition to the real estate, equipment, and inventory necessary to operate a franchise, the initial franchise fee is a significant investment and remains a barrier to opening a franchise. When coupled with the incentives offered through VetFran, this tax credit will go a long way towards helping veterans open new businesses and create opportunities for both themselves and others. The franchise community has a demonstrated record of success in implementing veterans programs, and we believe that this legislation will serve to expand on the success while providing veteran entrepreneurs with significant financial resources to realize the American dream of owning and operating their own small business. I believe that this type of effort, one that marshals the information and expertise from hundreds of companies across many industries, is a successful model to help provide businesses opportunities for veterans. I thank you for the opportunity to testify today and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Our next witness is Don Smith, who's the founder and CEO of Mystic Remy Teas, which is an online tea retailer in Greenville, South Carolina. Ms. Smith served 8 years in the Air Force, completing multiple deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan, Turkey, and Germany, where she was in charge of managing troop and cargo movement and logistics. Ms. Smith is testifying on behalf of Business and Professional Women's Foundation. Thank you for being here. Look forward to your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Ranking Member, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Dawn Smith. I am the founder and CEO of Mystic Remedies in Greenville, South Carolina, and testifying today on behalf of Business and Professional Women's Foundation. As a woman veteran who recently started my own business, I hope my experiences can be helpful to the committee as you examine which government and nonprofit programs can best assist and meet the unique needs of women veterans as they transition back to civilian life. I am proud of my military service. I served in the Air Force for 8 years and deployed 6 times to Iraq, Afghanistan, Turkey, and Germany. My expertise in the military was logistics, which means I was responsible for making sure that movement of both troops and cargo got to the right place and were on time. In both Iraq and Afghanistan, I was in charge of terminal operations for processing and loading more than 7,000 passengers and directing the shipment of hundreds of thousands of tons of cargo. My work was consistently recognized for meeting excellent delivery and departure standards. I also earned my MBA while in the military. Because of my advanced logistics experience, MBA, I really didn't think I would have a problem finding a rewarding career when I left the service. But when I returned home to North Carolina to raise my children on my own, I was not even considered for management jobs. Instead, I was offered positions like a warehouse worker, which I didn't think utilized my skills, education, and experience. For a couple of years, I took various jobs that did not fit my background, including working as a teacher, a secretary, since I needed to feed my children. These jobs offered neither the career I was seeking nor the salary suitable for my experience. While working, I continued to look for more rewarding and financially secure positions. I returned to school to begin a master's degree in accounting. But looking for a job while managing the demands of work, school, and motherhood, I became discouraged. I knew I needed help, so I turned to the internet to see what career resources might be available for a woman veteran. I was very fortunate to find Business and Professional Women's Foundation, a nonprofit organization that runs a free career mentoring program for women veterans, Joining Forces and Mentoring Plus. What attracted me to the program was that working women volunteered for women like me to help navigate us on a path to successful civilian careers and even pursue entrepreneur opportunities. Participants can access a high-tech, high-touch internet community that includes experienced women mentors as coaches, navigators, and supporters for free. I immediately signed up and was assigned a wonderful, accomplished mentor, Sandy Smith. Sandy worked with me one-on-one and was persistent in offering advice and support on everything from interview skills to resume development. She pushed me, checking on how many resumes I sent out each day. She helped me create a new mindset that gave me the courage to apply for a position that previously I wouldn't have thought possible. In 2012, I was hired as an auditor by the U.S. Defense Contract Audit Agency. I'm happy to report that my salary at this job is twice what I've been making previously. After the job, Sandy, my mentor, did not leave me on my own, but coached me on office etiquette and protocols necessary to successfully navigate the civilian sector workplace. All of Sandy's mentoring and coaching paid off. I love my job and feel my career is now on a very solid ground. But even though I love my job, I have always dreamed of owning my own business. With Sandy's encouragement and suitable mentoring, I was able to start my online store that sells my brand of tea. I am very excited that Mystic Remedies is currently in the final selection round to appear on Shark Tank. If I am chosen, I will be seeking funding to open my tea bar. I truly believe none of this would happen without the personal mentoring and wide array of career resources offered by BPW Foundation. It was so successful for me because it was designed by and for women. Other veteran-based employment and career development programs too often miss the unique elements and needs that matter most to women veterans. We need awareness and guidance, not available support, employment resources and programs that support and recognize the multiple roles impacting women veterans and their access to jobs. I can attest to the fact that women leaving the service often face unique challenges, including single motherhood or caregiving for family members, including wounded warriors. Also, women veterans often do not identify as veterans and don't know they can access a wide array of benefits. We are frequently looked at differently from our fellow male veterans. Women who served in war zones are often not afforded the same level of prestige as their male counterparts. Thanks for the generous support of BPW and the partners such as Alliant Credit Foundation, Booz Allen, Hamilton, City, CVS, and others. There is no cost to participate in these mentoring programs. It's absolutely free for women who participate. Thank you for this opportunity to share my story and tell about the resources that helped me begin my successful career and start my business. I hope that other women veterans will benefit from my experience and that the committee will support programs that are tailored for the challenges and needs that our women veterans face as they seek meaningful lives after our time in the military. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. David Leghorn. Mr. Leghorn is an Assistant Director of the National Employment and Education Division for the American Legion, the largest veteran service organization in the country. In his current capacity, Mr. Leghorn oversees the employment and small business portfolios and administers the American Legion's National Veterans Hiring Initiative. Prior to joining the American Legion, he served in the United States Army as both a mortar infantryman and a civil affairs specialist. Welcome.
Chairman Graves, ranking members Velasquez, and distinguished members of the committee, on behalf of Commander Dillinger and the 2.5 million members of the American Legion, we thank you for the opportunity to discuss our views regarding private sector initiatives for veteran entrepreneurs. The American Legion is one of the few organizations that deliver privately funded resources exclusively to the veterans community at no cost, because we believe that our service members, veterans, and spouses have already paid for our programs with their service. The bulk of our entrepreneurial resources are delivered biannually, coinciding with our winter conference and national convention. Our convention moves from state to state each year, and as such, we've managed to spread our services across the regions. Boost to Business, or B2B, is a modular curriculum that has been piloted and is now being implemented. The curriculum was designed for transitioning service members as a result of an agreement signed by various agencies to revamp the Transition Assistance Program in compliance with the 2011 VATA Hire Heroes Act. Boost to Business is a phenomenal off-the-shelf curriculum that can be tailored to serve different segments of the veterans community. With minor adjustments, B2B was adapted exclusively for female veterans and spouses. This is the second year the American Legion has hosted a 2-day Women's Entrepreneurship and Resources Workshop based off of this curriculum, and we've had remarkable attendance rates. One way we know we're delivering a quality product is when iteration after iteration, we see next to 0% attrition rate in attendance between the 2 days. Going forward, the American Legion will be working with Syracuse University and SBA's Office of Veterans Business Development to tailor the curriculum in a new program that will be called Reboots to Business, where we will deliver the B2B curriculum to the rest of the veterans population. The first class of Reboots to Business will be hosted in conjunction with our national convention this year in Charlotte, North Carolina. Though our programs do not receive federal funding, we are utilizing a hybrid B2B curriculum developed by SBA's OVBD and Syracuse University. Further, our training sessions draw heavily upon SBA's grantees and resource partners for speakers and facilitators that ensure our training sessions are successful. Looking at the amount of interest from our small business workshops. The American Legion knows that our programs and services do not have the bandwidth to support the entire veterans community. For instance, registration for our Women's Small Business Workshop recently held in Houston had to be capped at 120 registrants, and additional people were regrettably waitlisted. Veterans came from as far as Nevada and Missouri to attend this event. Further, the American Legion only has one counselor on staff to assist with business formation and VA verification issues. We rely heavily on SBA's resource partners and our volunteers from the American Legion Small Business Task Force to act as mentors and advocates. While there are a few free entrepreneurial programs and counseling services for veterans, it is hard to find services that are both, one, exclusive to the veterans community, and two, do not receive federal funding. The more dependable entrepreneurial programs for the veterans community have been the federally funded programs such as the Veterans Business Outreach Centers, or VBOCs, and the versatile Boost to Business curriculum, and the myriad of mini MBA programs for veterans that are hosted at various universities. Entrepreneurship training requires the kind of expertise that is gained through experience. Veterans need counselors who understand their culture and experience. VBOCs fill this void and provide a unique service to veteran entrepreneurs that cannot be duplicated by existing programs within SBA or VA. Ideally, the American Legion prefers that VBOCs retain sole ownership and deliver B2B to transitioning service members, but unfortunately, after 15 years of program growth, the network is still too small and underfunded to support this task. Small business outreach and training programs offered through prime federal contractors only work with established businesses and rely on proceeds from federal contracts for support. Veteran entrepreneurship programs funded by philanthropic support alone rarely last more than a couple of years. The most reliable entrepreneurship programs available for veterans are the training and assistance programs offered through SBA's OVBD. Any discussion that seeks to reduce funding or inhibit the operations of this office will be met with opposition from the American Legion. Assistance to veterans who have honorably served our nation is an earned benefit. Historically, the support for veteran-owned small businesses have been strong and bipartisan. The American Legion looks forward to working with this committee on these issues. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and we look forward to any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Leghorn. Our next witness is Charleston Malkemus, founder and CEO of GoZump Incorporated from Miami, Florida. GoZump is a real estate brokerage championing home buying for military families. He serves as a major in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, where he is a ground intelligence officer and led a scout sniper platoon through 2 combat deployments in Iraq. He's testifying on behalf of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Thanks for being here and look forward to your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Graves. Good afternoon, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Charleston Malkemus, and I am the founder and chief executive officer of GoZump Incorporated. Thank you for providing us with an opportunity to discuss with you veterans and entrepreneurship. The next greatest generation of America is coming home. Over the next 5 years, America will have more than 1 million service members transitioning, who have been fighting this nation's battles for over a decade. They have endured every hardship known to man. They have been diplomats and community leaders, restored people's homes and freedoms, solved problems of unparalleled complexity, and led some of our nation's best and brightest. All of them volunteered to serve and potentially sacrifice for the greater good of America. They represent less than 0.5% of the population and are this country's greatest resource. We have an opportunity today to capitalize on the surge of veteran talent coming home in order to move America forward. Whether through America's small businesses or leading new ventures, veterans have a wealth of capabilities that are ideally suited to solving this nation's problems. While they will be confronted with many challenges reintegrating into civilian life, none will be greater than finding a way to continue to serve. Communities and businesses will benefit the most from directly engaging veterans with their problems and providing them with the resources and equipment to overcome them. Private sector initiatives have to be prepared for transitioning veterans. Hiring Our Heroes, a program of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, is an excellent example of the efforts that are necessary. Working with their vast network of chambers and strategic partners, Hiring Our Heroes has been creating a movement across America. They are rallying communities to find veterans and their spouses meaningful employment while supporting the work of veteran-friendly businesses like Gazump. Gazump's story began way back on the battlefields of Iraq. Like many entrepreneurs, I had a personal friction point. And during my second deployment, I was leading a Scout Sniper platoon through Operation Steel Curtain. I received an email. It said, the real estate market back home wasn't looking so great. So I realized, okay, I'm going to have to do something about it. When I got home, I was confronted with the very real challenges of having to go through the friction points of selling my home. Very similar to what I had to go through when I was trying to buy my home, being relocated out to Camp Pendleton, California. When I started to investigate this problem, I realized there really wasn't any sort of application or solution that was out there at that time. Very comparable story to many entrepreneurs across America. I quickly realized, not too soon after that, when the real estate market started to come crashing down, that this was some friction points that more than myself and many Americans were feeling. After many years of research, a lot of sweat and equity, recruiting, I was eventually able to lead a team of Marines that all decided to go out and combat this problem. And today, home buying still persists as probably one of the most frustrating problems in America within the internet age. We had the fortunate opportunity of being selected last year for a competition within the Chamber of Commerce. They were trying to find one of the most veteran-friendly small businesses in America, and we were honored with being selected as one of the top 4 for that competition. But my initial introduction to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce went back to when I was a unit commander of 156 Marines in Hialeah, Florida. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of those Marines were having trouble finding employment. Some of them were sleeping in their cars. People who had gone over to Iraq and fought, they were sleeping in their cars. And these were distinguished men and women of America. They were struggling to go to school, have a better life, feed their families. They were trying to transition into civilian life as best they could, and for the most part, they were met with a lot of frustration. Me and my team decided to volunteer. We got involved. We got committed. We spent hundreds of hours, joint task force, regional boards, business breakfasts. And I'll be honest with you, the commentary that we heard from most of the business leaders is that there is a great feeling of alienation with their military. They do not identify. And PTSD and the campaign for post-traumatic stress disorder has really only increased that feeling of separation. It's an unfortunate situation because so many men and women who have served obviously have those type of conditions, but the lack of knowledge around it has fostered this kind of impression that they don't know how to effectively deal with it. As an American veteran and entrepreneur, I've enjoyed great satisfaction working in the startup community. And it wasn't until attending a Hiring Our Heroes job fair that I realized that veterans themselves as a community are ideally situated for startups and small businesses. A startup is the closest professional replacement for military life. Veterans are not only familiar with high stress, fast-paced, and volatile working conditions, many of them thrive in them. They've been conditioned to work insane hours to accomplish incredible objectives and never worry about yesterday's disappointments. Over the next 5 years, small businesses in America will have this unique opportunity to tap into this veteran talent pool. Now, as Chairman Graves had alluded to earlier, studies have shown that over 45% of military veterans are more likely to start a business, twice as likely to succeed, and favored by consumers 70% of the time. Despite these odds, they will need both direction and resources to be successful. Unfortunately, a national veteran program for entrepreneurship on par with the Chamber Foundation's Initiative for Employment does not exist. As a team, we've recognized this as a critical shortfall to a veteran's successful transition and have decided to launch a program in South Florida. Veterans are best positioned to solve problems whether as valuable team members in America's small businesses or leading new ventures. Chairman Graves, distinguished members of the committee, I thank you again for the opportunity to testify and look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you all very much, and we're going to start questions with Mr. Benfolio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank each and every one of you fellow veterans. Good job. I'm very proud, Mr. Franklin, great organization, UPS. But I have a question, Ms. Smith. You have experience in the Air Force as a logistics person, and it seems to me that you might be more UPS oriented. So did you look into UPS at all?
No, sir, I did not look into UPS.
Okay. Well, I was going through, thinking about this and reading over the briefing that I have for this hearing. I was going through it, and I just wanted to point out to the chairman and anybody else who's cared to listen that this is a field manual from the United States Army. It's 101-5. And in the back here, you'll find a document called an operational or op plan, right? You're familiar with that? Op plan? You know, it doesn't, go ahead.
Yes, sir, I am.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to well, if you're familiar with this, you can apply this for a business plan, couldn't you? You see, and I think just recently, business plans have become more important when we start a business. And I think the surge in the military of teaching soldiers what an operational plan is all about, you know, with little imagination, they can apply that same format to a marketing plan. Am I correct?
Yes, you are, sir.
So being in the military, you're not only learning the job and a skill may not be related to your civilian career, but there are things in the military you can apply, as the chairman and the ranking member pointed out. Communication skills, leadership skills, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And in my own, Mr. Malkemus, right? You focused on post-traumatic stress. You mentioned that in your testimony?
I did, yes, Congressman.
Just a little sidebar here. I don't consider that a disorder. I think it's misnamed because every veteran that's experienced combat comes back with some post-traumatic stress, and I think it's a natural thing. They've experienced something few people have experienced, and to call it a disorder is the wrong thing. I think that's it's discriminating and it's unwarranted. But they know what soldiers that have been in combat know what it's like to take a lot of stress and still do the right thing, correct?
Oh, I agree completely with you, Congressman.
Right. Just like in business.
And
Mr. Franklin, if you don't mind here, would you how would you describe to the committee, or would you describe to the committee how you initially found the VetFram initiative, or did you say that, or did I miss it?
No, sir, I didn't. I shortened my written testimony, shortened it for the speech. It's actually Google. I found it through Google. I was, as I said briefly, I was transitioning and saw the opportunities for me to go into different management jobs and decided I wanted to do something completely different, and decided I wanted to look to see what opportunities I could have to work for myself. That's what seemed most appealing.
And I think every soldier knows how to use social network.
Absolutely.
You've been deployed.
Absolutely.
Right.
I agree.
Go
yes,
ahead.
sir.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so I just Googled veteran franchise opportunities, and VetFran came up, and I went there, and it's more of a resource, just connecting information with the veterans that are interested. It lists out how much it costs to get into the different franchises, hundreds of different franchises, and you can just every veteran has a different personal financial ability, and then I was able to match up what I could do with what was available, and that's really how VetFran helped me out, and that's how I found it.
Very good. God bless the UPS for taking
Absolutely.
giving this opportunity to our veterans. What advice would you give to other returning veterans searching for business opportunities?
Don't limit yourself. I guess one of the things I think that VetFran can help someone do is, and this is my own personal experience with talking to other veterans, is veterans don't really consider franchising as an option because they see the price tag, and there's a price tag, and it required me to take a loan and use a lot of my personal savings to get into it, but it required me to sort of ignore a lot of risk, which I know most veterans probably are a little more willing to accept a little risk, but I think don't limit yourself.
Veterans willing to accept a little risk?
A lot of risk. We'll put it at a lot of risk, sir. But no, and I think not limiting yourself. That's probably one of the biggest things, is to just don't look to see what the opportunities are and then say, well, I can't do that. I think going in with an attitude of, let's at least try. Let's give it a try.
Speaking of risk, a veteran knows about risk assessment, don't they?
Absolutely, sir.
So they know how to evaluate a situation or a mission and put together a risk analysis, don't they?
Sometimes to a painful point.
Yes, very good. And
Yes,
I
sir.
think we've run out of time. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I yield back.
Ranking Member Velasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leghorn, in testimony given to the committee, witnesses have stated that veterans generally hire other veterans. Moreover, small business disabled veterans businesses are much more likely to hire other veterans with disabilities or join with other such businesses to compete for a contract. Therefore, at a time when the unemployment rate for veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan is over 9%, it is vital that we get contracts to these businesses. So I just would like for you to share with this committee, do you feel that breakdowns at individual agencies have impeded the ability of veterans, small businesses get contracts with the within the federal marketplace? Do you think that the federal marketplace contracting practices in any way does not provide a level playing field for veterans to get to do business, to be able to do business with the federal government?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. We do feel that there are certain barriers for veterans to get contracts in the federal procurement space. Namely, a lot of that comes from the Department of Veteran Affairs. Granted, they are doing a better job of verification. There are still some lapses in, I would say, judgment calls in some of the cases that I've worked with. So, for example, I've had a recent case, a small business, very complex structure. She had a lot of her joint ventures stripped of a CVOSB status because of the lengthy verification process. So things administratively, there are barriers, and again, it's at the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Okay. Ms. Smith, because of limited access to credit and lingering economic uncertainty, many VC firms are hesitant to invest in startup firms. Besides tax policies, how can we encourage more angel investors and private foundations to invest in new veteran-owned enterprises?
Madam Ranking Member, that is a very good question. I think the problem is a lot of people are scared to invest into businesses, and I would just suggest that they take a chance for veterans because we have really great resources with veterans and veteran-owned businesses.
Okay. The SBA offers outreach programs designed to provide a wide array of services to both prospective and established business owners. Before you reach out to the foundation, had you pursued any services from the SBA, like the Veterans Business Outreach Center? And if you did, will you share your experience?
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad you asked that question because, honestly, to start my business, I was aware of the Patriot Express loan through the SBA, and I've tried initially to go through them to get funding for my business. Actually, my business is completely my own investment. I bootstrapped the whole thing. I was denied, and I thought the process was supposed to be easy and simple for veterans, especially if you have great credit like I do and you have a great business plan.
So you applied for a loan and the loan was declined?
Yes, and they made it seem like it was a lot of different loops and barriers that you had to go through, and that seems to me very discouraging for veterans, especially when you have all these avenues for veterans that are supposed to make the system easier. So it was discouraging, and then I just decided to go for it myself with my own money. And thankfully, like I said earlier, at the final rounds for Shark Tank, because I took that initiative on my own. But I think there is a breakdown, some type of disconnect with the programs that they say are available and funding that is actually available to the veterans.
Well, maybe later you can share with me specific reasons for them not approving your loan.
I would love to, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you all for your service. And what I'm trying to get my arms around a little bit is, when I look at some of the preparation materials here, it says that basically today the unemployment rate for veterans is 6.9 and for the rest of the population 6.7. So not to say 6.9 and 6.7 aren't, I think they're fairly similar. I'm just wondering, as I look at veterans and knowing myself as an employer, I'll hire a veteran over someone else every day of the week because of what you've been through and all the training you've gone through. So I'm wondering if some of the unemployment numbers have to do with the fact you've got a lot of veterans coming out just starting to look for jobs. For instance, if you looked at the unemployment rate of recent college graduates, God only knows what that is. That's probably 20%. That veterans coming out of the war are new to the workforce looking versus when you look at the entire civilian population. That includes everyone that's been working 10 years, whatever. I just wonder, maybe Mr. Leghorn, do you think it's statistically significant, the 6.9, the 6.7, and you're measuring folks just entering the workforce against folks that have been in the workforce?
I will admit the overall unemployment rates are really similar right now, but we, of course, focus on our post 9/11 veterans, which is substantially higher. Compared to their civilian counterparts, and when administering our services, that's as of right now, that's where we're attacking it, because if we could lower it there, we could lower the entire unemployment rate.
I think maybe the point I'm trying to make is what we should be doing is looking for jobs for everybody. We need the economy to move. If the entire economy was growing 3.5%, we might not even be having this hearing. I don't know. I think the biggest issue I see is an economy that's stuck for a lot of reasons, tax policy being foremost. So, what I'd like, the remaining time is certainly Ms. Smith and Mr. Franklin. When I look at starting a business, and I've done that, number one, you need a good business plan. Number two, you need access to capital. And number three, you have to have a willingness to give up equity. That's the most painful piece. You're going to do the work. You're going to put your neck on the line, and somebody else wants half your company. What do you say to folks, veterans trying to start their company? Do you agree that those are the three key ingredients? And if you do it right, as frustrating it is to get turned down on a loan, you just go find one another way?
Sir, I would have to agree with you 100% because, like I spoke earlier, I was turned down on a loan, but I believed in my company and I believed in what I could do, and I knew I had a sound business plan, so I just invested in myself, and that sometimes you have to take that risk. And fortunate for me, I had enough resources to start my business. Right now it is online, but I plan to actually have a storefront at some point.
So if somebody had said to you, I'll give you the money, I'm not going to loan it to you, I'll be an equity investor, but I get 40% of your company, 40, would you have taken their money?
I would probably try to negotiate at first, but I would consider it simply because I want to make my company successful. But ultimately, I would have to negotiate, sir.
Yeah, what about you, Mr. Franklin? As a franchise owner, I'm assuming you own it.
Yes, sir. Sole proprietor. As far as putting it all together, I did. I liquidated all of my personal assets, which was pretty much everything I had. I didn't have a mortgage or anything. Luckily, the Navy didn't give me the time to really settle down in any one place. But so I took that and I leveraged that position where I was at when I transitioned to say, okay, I'm willing to risk it all, and I did that. And I got an SBA loan to finance part of the startup, and the first bank I went to, I was denied a loan to. It was their own internal happenings that they did that. But then I was approved from a few other banks. But yeah, it's one of those things that not only did I invest all of my personal assets, I then went and put myself in a lot of debt. And that's something that I think, is a real consideration that someone with a family, I would not want to do that.
Well, I think, veterans make perfect entrepreneurs coming from where they do, and that whether it's the SBA or other resources, it starts with a business plan that's real and that's realistic and so forth, and then access to capital. But the killer many times I have found is the willingness or unwillingness to give up equity, because you say I'm going to do all the work and somebody else is going to take 30%, 40%, but that's welcome to the real world. And that's, part of my message to anyone starting a new business is he who has the gold makes the rule. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding this hearing. It's really important. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of you for being here. Each of you have served our country, and now you've found your own way to break into entrepreneurship, showing again that our brave men and women in our armed forces are clearly the best of the best, and we appreciate it. And I hope what we're hearing today is going to help us as we move forward, trying to connect our veterans with jobs and with business opportunities. This unemployment rate of our veterans since 9/11 is really disturbing, that it is so much higher than the national unemployment rate. Women veterans have the highest unemployment rate in this country. And then there's the homeless veterans, which is so disturbing to me. In Los Angeles County, where my district is, we have over 6,000 homeless veterans, the largest concentration of homeless veterans in this country. So this is a real problem, and we all say we want to support our veterans and support our troops, but the fact of the matter is when you come home, it looks like there's very little support in really having you transition to the civilian life. I wanted to follow up a little bit, Mr. Malkemus, with the issue of PTSD. And as one of our colleagues said earlier, maybe we're labeling it wrong as a disorder, and maybe if we change the name of it, it might be different. It's something that every veteran suffers. But clearly there is a stigma, as you said, and even when you look at the facts of the Hire Our Heroes program through the Chamber of Commerce, we've got pledges to hire like 409,000 veterans, but it's not matching up with the actual veterans hired. So is it true that some business owners are admitting publicly or privately that they're less likely to hire a veteran because of the stigma of PTSD? And maybe you could speak a little bit more about this stigma, because it does exist, and maybe what we can do to address this issue without downplaying the seriousness of this issue for our veterans.
Sure, Congresswoman. I would say privately. I don't think most business leaders at this point are anything but supportive of veterans. But clearly, if you're evaluating two candidates and one has something that could be a potential risk that they don't know how to deal with professionally, which, right there is already a lack of understanding that they would think that they may need to deal with something, as opposed to these are some very talented people that could come in and probably restructure whole departments or divisions of your operation based off of their skill set and what they've already done for us in the country. I'll tell you just, a good caveat for hiring our heroes and their job fairs, which I think in terms of an organization for finding meaningful employment, they've done more than any other that I've come across. And I think they've probably brought the business community more to the veteran table than anyone else. But I will say, they have their work cut out for them, and a lot of that's on the business community side. I was a graduate of University of Pennsylvania. When you graduated from that university, you had managing directors, top-level executives coming to cherry pick off the best and brightest talented out of that university. You know, they're going straight to Wall Street banking
Right.
jobs. You go to even a top level, you could have colonels, you know, at that job fair. You will not see those type of recruiters at that job fair. So clearly those companies are sending who they think they're going to find there. I mean, that right there tells you already how they're valuing the veteran talent that's coming out.
Thank you. You know, before my time's up, Ms. Smith, I really appreciated your testimony. It's very inspiring. You talked about how only 4% of veteran-owned small businesses are owned by women, and as a female veteran and mother, you struggled for a while to find, you know, a job that both supported your family and matched your skill set. I'm happy, and it was great to hear about the Business and Professional Women's Foundation and your mentor, Sandy Smith. What do you think we can do to improve services that are available so that we can connect with women veterans sooner before they run up against so many obstacles and so many frustrations? What can we do better?
Well, ma'am, I'm glad you asked that question because normally when we leave the military, we're offered transition assistance program. And with that program, it's supposed to gear you for the civilian life. However, it didn't help as much as it says it will. I think if we put programs like Business Professional Women's Foundation in touch with veterans, or excuse me, soon-to-be veterans as they transition out of the military on bases and actually let them be aware, promote them more, get the name out so people will know that there is a program that is 100% free for women veterans who are there to help you. And I love that program. I love what they have done for me, and they really changed my life. So I believe in that program because it has helped me tremendously. So I just think getting the name out and making veterans or military females aware of this type of program exists, and there are people out there that really care about you.
Thank you. And that's an interesting concept to put these resources on the bases before you transition. And a lot of you were shaking your head on that. I know I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Rice?
Thank each of you for your service. Mrs. Smith, a special thanks to you since you're from my home state of South Carolina. I just have one question I want each one of you to answer. And maybe you can't think of it right now, but if you had one thing, if each one of you could be Congress for a day, and there was one thing that we could do to make it better for veterans, what would it be? And I'll start with you, Mr. Leghorn.
Wow, it's kind of hard to be put on the spot, but one, you know, if I was a congressperson, what I would do is, you know, I would definitely try to bring some of the programs that Ms. Smith talked about onto the DoD's transition assistance program. That's, you know, just off the top of my head what I would do. There needs to be a little more private sector involvement in that program.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Malkemus.
Congressman, thank you. I would say change the conversation. Right now about veterans, you hear a lot about, you know, certain aspects of what they've dealt with, and I would say, why does it matter? Why do we care about veterans coming home and transitioning? And the truth of the matter, from my perspective, is it's talent. You know, this country needs talented people to start leading itself out of economic stagnation or whatever else you want to say. Whatever problems we have, these are people that have been out there solving problems in foreign countries and doing incredible things. Americans need to understand that from a different perspective. So I would say change the conversation.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Smith.
Sir, what I would do is really provide funding to the veterans and the programs that actually benefit the veterans, because there are very few programs that truly benefit the veteran and are willing to help them 100%.
Can you help us identify those?
Well, one, of course, is BPW. I could attest to that. Hire Heroes, I also know about them as well, and they help veterans as well. So, yes, really providing the funding and actually getting the funding in place and also getting the veterans connected with these programs. That would be the thing.
I'd like your opinion on some that don't help as much. You don't have to do it right now.
Yes, sir.
Maybe we could follow up after.
Yes, sir. I would love to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Franklin?
I think to follow up on what Ms. Smith was saying and maybe to help answer your last question was, I was thinking, how can we help the veteran and connect the veteran with opportunities? And I think the VA does a very good job of offering these services to veterans. But if we truly want to help us make a decision on what we want to do with our life, rather than say, here's a example, GI Bill is great, I don't want anything to happen to it, but say, go to school, here's your only option. I wanted to open a business. I was actually in grad school. I was funding it myself. I gave up grad school and decided to use my money to open my business. There was no support from the VA for any type of financial incentives to go open a business. Maybe have the organization look into doing something like that.
In lieu of?
I understand that there's a budget. As a business owner, I understand a budget. You just can't create capital.
I almost got the impression you were saying in lieu of tuition assistance or something.
Oh, and again, I said I don't want to take away from the GI Bill, but maybe create a separate program. We already have a framework of successful programs like the VA home loan or the GI Bill. But what about veterans that want to do something else with their life than own a home or go to school? Veterans that want to open a business. I think maybe trying to look into something like that to support the veterans, that would be one of the things I'd want to do.
Ms. Smith, I heard you say that the transitional program wasn't that helpful to you, and you're not the first person I've heard say that. What can we do to improve that? How can we make it better? Because I've never heard anybody say positive things about it. All I've ever heard people mention is negative. Maybe that's only because we only hear the negative, but what can we do to make that transitional program useful?
Sir, honestly, my experience with the transition program is just kind of like you get pamphlets and a brief overview of what to expect in the civilian world. I think that it's not the people that are actually in the civilian sector who are running these programs or who benefit. That's why I said maybe putting programs like BPW or even some civilian companies that, okay, this is what I'm looking for. These are the type of skill sets that I would like you to have. So the transition would be smoother for veterans leaving the military. They would say, oh, yes, I have this skill set, or yes, I have this knowledge. And it would make it, I think, it a lot easier.
Thank you, ma'am. My time's up.
Ms. Chu?
Yes, Mr. Leghorn, your testimony makes it very clear that the American Legion and other veteran service organizations are strongly supportive of the Small Business Administration's efforts to assist veterans in realizing their dreams of entrepreneurship. And in fact, I noted with interest your testimony that said that the American Legion is disappointed in the recommendations of the House Committee on Small Business that proposes federal budget cuts that would eliminate the Veteran Business Outreach Center in the most recent publication of Views and Estimates. I would like to make it clear that I'm not supportive of these cuts, and in fact, I agree that the Veterans Business Outreach Centers fill a critical void that cannot be filled or duplicated by other programs such as mentoring and veteran-specific assistance. Can you tell us how the services provided by these centers differ from private sector initiatives?
Thank you for your question, ma'am. The VBOX, I've only visited a few of them, but from the few that I have visited, they're run by people that have been in the military. They understand the experiences that veterans have, and they offer programs and services that cater to a certain set of experiences. And a lot of times, because they have a smaller caseload, well, not a smaller caseload, but the one-on-one type, really high-touch services are a little bit better in terms of, they really become friends with the people that they counsel. And a lot of times I know some of these VBOX are open or are accessible to the veterans on weekends and even on the holidays and even at nights. Because again, it's kind of like a military courtesy. And that's Yeah.
Okay. Last week, the Small Business Committee held a hearing entitled SBA Initiatives, Necessary or Redundant Spending. And I asked a lot of questions about the Boots to Business program. Could you tell us why this program is unique and not redundant? Because I understand that that is your view.
We feel that it's a really good curriculum because it's modular. You could take modules in and out, and by changing the guest speakers or the panels, you could address different segments, or you could apply it to different segments of the veterans population. We did it successfully for female veterans and spouses, and the transition. This curriculum is not really redundant because it's not on par with the many MBA courses that are happening at the universities. It's like a really it's a crash course. It's a 2-day crash course that pretty much tells somebody that maybe didn't know anything about entrepreneurship and lets them know what's involved and really sits them down and makes sure that they know what they're getting into. And we don't see too many people or programs and services like that. A lot of these programs go really deep into the weeds, and which is really good. But when we're dealing with transitioning veterans or transitioning service members and veterans that don't even have a business plan, a lot of them don't even haven't even registered their business. That's who this program is geared towards.
In fact, you talked about the unique set of challenges that veterans have because of their experience of being in the military. Could you talk about that a little bit, such as the lack of accumulation of assets and things like that?
Yes. So most of our veterans coming out of military service do not have collateral for loans. And in fact, that's the reason why the Patriot Express was so underutilized, because we lack collateral. If we had collateral, we would be able to use a regular loan product and wouldn't have to rely on the PXL. So that, of course, is one of our challenges. And of course, for those that do have collateral or a really good business plan and were able to get a loan, a lot of times they find themselves paying off their loan with and that's principal and interest with the money that they just taken out from the bank, because again, a lot of my small businesses that I counsel do not make money in the first month, maybe year.
Thank you. I yield back.
Meng? Oh, she's not here. Mr. Schrader?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just general question. Mr. Franklin indicated some familiarity already, but were all of you aware of the Small Business Administration when you got out of the service? Okay, nodding heads. Good. That's good. So then maybe start with Mr. Franklin. You had some experience in trying to get a loan, and you say you actually were able to get a loan or part of a loan. Could you describe your experience and what particular challenges you came up against?
Yes, sir. The challenges that I faced, I think, were more internal. Every bank operates differently, even under the terms of the SBA loan. And all the banks that I went to were preferred SBA lenders, which means that the bank internally does all the paperwork, and in the end, they make the final decision, and then they notify the SBA. And I think that's something that until you actually go get an SBA loan, you don't realize that that's part of the process. So I was really adamant, educating myself, and I was like going to go get a Patriot Express loan. And I found out that it really didn't offer any benefit that a regular SBA loan could give me. And so going from there, I realized, okay, that's fair. But getting the SBA loan, it was more, I guess, the banks themselves, and that's what I started talking about, is the way every bank did their math differently. And two of the banks that I was approved from wanted me to liquidate my IRA, which I thought was a little too much. And so essentially I actually went back to both banks and said, so you're asking me to give up every cent that I have because I'm already putting in everything else I have, and then liquidate my IRA. What happens when I run out of capital, which you're going to loan me? I now have no money to come back and say, can you loan me some more? You're not going to want to do that. And they said, oh, really? I was like, yeah, that's how math works.
Yeah.
But no, that was the biggest struggle, was that the banks, the way that they did their math, were very protective. So it wasn't necessarily a problem with the SBA. It was the banks themselves.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Smith, any comments? Do you try for a loan?
Yes, sir, I did. With my experience, it was, like you said, the collateral, and I did try for the Patriot Express loan because I thought it was a small amount to ask for. And as I said, with my what I was dealing with, I also have children, so it was like I was really willing to give up a lot just to get my business off the ground. So it just didn't turn out, but fortunately, I was able to have enough funding for myself and start my company.
Good. Mr. Malkemus?
Sir, not for this company, but I had the same experiences as both Ms. Smith and Mr. Franklin. The Patriot Express loan was one of those things that you thought you had as a benefit being a veteran, and you walked into any bank, and they basically explained to you that it was just a regular small business loan, 30% collateral required. And
That's sad. That's sad. Wasn't our intent, obviously, at the end of the day. How about the small business centers? You guys have any experience with them? Do you get any education or frustration with them? Mr. Malkemus?
I mean, I can comment. I've had exposure to a variety of the SBA resources for almost 15 years when I initially started trying to do my first startup company. And, back when I was doing that, they were the only people on the block that you could go to for resources and networks and access to anything, any information on entrepreneurship. And I went to Penn. So, they had a lot of wealth there for an entrepreneur. Today, there's just so much. I mean, especially in the last 8 years, there's been an explosion in the knowledge base from the startup community on lessons learned on how to launch startups, faster, cheaper, and more effectively than ever before. And I would say, a lot of that information that's out there, a lot of those methodologies are still kind of only found in certain pockets and communities that have that. But there's veterans in those pockets and communities, and they're trying to tap into the veteran community.
I think most of your colleagues, veterans, coming out, know anything about the SBA and small business development centers?
I would say they have a better understanding of the SBA than they do the wealth and knowledge within the startup communities.
Okay.
And that's a bit of a disconnect because a lot of those lessons learned would help them.
Yeah. Ms. Smith, you agree?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right. Very good. Well, you all are a lot smarter than I was. I wasn't a veteran, so I honor you for your service. But I was an entrepreneur, and I was a lot more ignorant than you all are. So you're coming out a lot further ahead than a lot of young people in my day. And hopefully we'll fine-tune these programs and partner, with the private sector. Like you said, there are a plethora of new programs out there where, people can put people together in a much, much more intelligent way. Just big deal is get the word out. And again, thank you for your service. Yield back.
Mr. Herrera Butler. Mr. Payne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also want to thank the ranking member. And I'd also like to thank all of you for your service and commitment to this nation and your service to this country and the military. And let's see, Mr. Leghorn, in your testimony, you mentioned that you believe small businesses are a community of individuals. You also mentioned that extended and multiple deployments by Coast Guards and reserve members are destructive to a business. With this in mind, what are your thoughts on a program that creates business-to-business opportunities for civilian small business owners to link up with veteran entrepreneurs?
We would definitely be in favor of more private sector involvement in the veteran hiring space.
Sure. We believe that, civilian owners could provide the stability while the veterans could bring a unique perspective and expertise. Can you speak on the pros and cons a bit more in reference to that?
Can you repeat the question?
What the idea is to create linkature, as we call it, business-to-business opportunities, for civilian small business owners to link with veteran entrepreneurs. When people have multiple deployments, a partnership of such would allow continuity for that business not to be disrupted by the member returning to a deployment.
So are you saying that this program would somehow let, when the veteran deploys, he would sub out his jobs or his?
That could be a way to look at it. This is a concept, an idea, and to that point, that could be something that potentially could evolve into as we look at it. But I mean, part of the issue that was raised was that when a member gets, deployed multiple times, this disrupts their business, and then they have to come back and try to put it together and move forward. So if there was a civilian partnership in that business, then the continuity and the consistency would remain during this military person's time of deployment on multiple, if it's multiple occasions. So do you see where that concept could be evolved into something that would help military members?
Yes, sir, I do. With the up-tempo of deployments, I think this is something that we could definitely work with your office on.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back.
Well, I want to thank all of you for participating today, and as most everybody has said, thank you for your service very much. Your testimony today is going to help us better understand the importance of the training programs and supporting our nation's veterans as they pursue business opportunities that are out there. And it's encouraging to hear about all the private sector initiatives that are truly helping our nation's heroes. And I do believe it's important to consider our federal programs in the context of what's happening in the private sector. So instead of duplicating the programs, we can focus on filling those gaps. But it's been an honor for me and the committee members to have you here today. Again, we appreciate it. And with that, I'd ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to submit statements supporting materials for the record. Without objection, that is so ordered. And with that, the hearing is adjourned.